Okay, today we're going to do some prep and practice around Module 2, Lesson 25. The two things that we're focusing on are making sure that we're framing our lessons so that students can understand what they're working towards. And then we're also working on building out thinking steps for students so they understand how each part of the lesson is connected. So let's just discuss what is the purpose of Lesson 25.
So the purpose of lesson 25 is for students to determine the central idea in Moonshot and One Giant Leap.
Mm-hmm. And what else are they doing in the second part of the lesson?
The second part of the lesson, they're using their notes to develop reasons for their opinion essay.
Okay, so now let's kind of just like pull back a little bit. Well, I know I kind of skipped ahead. What kind of lesson is this?
This is distill lesson.
This is a distill lesson, right? So you said that the purpose of this lesson is for students to determine the central idea of Moonshot and One Giant Leap, a text they've been reading. How are they getting there? So if the kids have a goal of determining the central idea of these two texts, what steps are they doing to get there in this lesson?
So they're gonna collect evidence so that they can prepare to discuss ideas of what they think the lesson could be.
Okay. So you're right, they are going to collect some evidence and they are going to engage in a discussion that will help them determine the central idea of Moonshot and One Giant Leap. Let's take a look at the lesson to get more specific about what kind of thinking kids have to do when they're collecting evidence and then during this discussion. Okay. So let's just start at the top of the lesson. Well, we already know what their central idea. So we know they're determining the central idea. How have you been defining central idea for students?
I've been saying the central idea is a lesson that they can learn from the text.
Okay, great. In the lesson, in the read section of the lesson, we start by having kids listen to this audio clip of NASA that they recorded when the astronauts first landed on the moon. Can you read for me the quote that they're going to hear?
The quote?
Yeah, it's on step number 3.
Oh, display Armstrong's quotation. One small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
Okay, so this part of the lesson is really important because it's helping kids kind of understand why Apollo 11, why this mission was so important. And this quote helps them to start thinking about that. So notice the lesson plan asks you, or wants you to ask kids, did all humans jump on the moon's surface? The answer is obviously no. Why do you think this quote is important, or how is this quote going to help kids?
I think...
Let's back up. What is it about? That's the first question they want kids to even answer. What is happening in the audio clip?
So they want them to know that in the audio clip, they see Neil Armstrong and he's stepping on the moon.
Yeah. So that's, yep. So why is that? Why is this important? Why is this one of the first things kids do in this lesson? Why is this quotation important? What does it mean?
What is this? Oh, the quotation, I guess they're saying one small step for man. Basically, is about like Neil Armstrong being the first person to achieve this like goal for everybody.
Exactly.
Like he was the only one to do it basically, but because he did it, everybody was like, he did it for everybody.
Yep. I think it's helping them really kind of like think about like, again, why this was so important. And it's helping them think about the importance of the moon landing. So don't spend a whole lot of time on it, but it does kind of help put into perspective for them, like, you know, that this was really important, that the two astronauts actually stepping on the moon, right? When it says one step for a man, yes, they're talking about a literal step. So these two astronauts, they stepped on the moon, but the moon landing was a historical moment that had been a dream for hundreds of years, and it taught everyone about how we can explore space, because people had been to space before, but nobody had ever landed on the moon, and this was like just a really important moment. Again, don't spend too much time on it for kids. Just kind of go play the audio clip, have the discussion, and move on. But I just want to like make sure like you understand the importance of that part of the lesson. So after kids listen to this audio clip, then we start to, what do we do next? So look at step 4.
Just start preparing for basically their thinking job. So they're going to be collecting evidence about what they can learn from how the people overcame challenges of the Apollo 11.
And why is that important?
Because that's going to guide them to the central idea.
Yes, exactly. So the thing that I want kids to really get from that part of the lesson is, you kind of mentioned this earlier. You were saying that sometimes you feel like you're having a hard time being very transferable with kids. So the important thing to tell them is that the reason why we're thinking about, and this is just what I'm saying, but the reason why we're thinking about the challenges and how they overcome them is because every time we read a nonfiction text, we always think about the problems and the solutions. That helps us determine the central idea. So in my slide that I made, I said, okay, so just to help us determine the central idea of today's text, we will discuss the following discussion question. How do they ask you to read the discussion question?
Corey.
What can we learn from how the people of Apollo 11 overcame challenges? And then I want to stamp for kids, discussing the challenges from Apollo 11 and how they overcame them will help us determine the central idea from our text. Whenever we are trying to find the central idea of a nonfiction text, we always think about the problem, which is our challenge, and the solution, how it's overcome. And then I want you to add a quick turn and talk. What do we think about to help us find the central idea of a nonfiction text? And I already made it on the slide, so the answer is there, but you said it twice now, so they should be able to tell you. We always think about the problem and the solution, or they can say the challenge and how it's overcome. But that's going to create some like transferable thinking and help kids understand like, okay, I'm actually going to find the problems and the solutions in these texts, but that's not the purpose of the lesson. The purpose is because I'm using this information to help me determine the central idea. Yeah. Does that make sense?
So that they know they can do that with any text.
Right. So make sure you stamp that for kids, and make sure kids are able to say that back to you by asking that turn and talk question, so they are not getting lost in the sauce and they understand like what they're working toward and how it's building, and it creates some transferability for them. Okay, so now that we have talked about, what did we just talk about? Now that we've talked about the thinking that kids have to do, look at step number, oh, I'm looking at the wrong thing, that's why. Give me 1 second. Look at step number, instruct students in small groups. Explain the evidence. No, look at step number 5. Read that for me.
Explain that to prepare for the discussion, they are now about to collect evidence about the things that were difficult and dangerous during the Apollo 11 mission.
Great. Tell me, so how does that align to their thinking? How does that align to the thinking that kids have to do to find the central idea? What do we just say? Whenever we look at a nonfiction text, we have to what?
We need to think about the problem and the solution.
Right.
So right now they're thinking about the difficult and dangerous thing, which is the problem.
Right, exactly. So that needs to be also made clear for students too. So make sure we're stamping that as well. So in order for us to find I wrote this down, sorry. Before we discuss the problems and solution in both texts, we will collect evidence about what those problems and solutions were by looking closely at the words and illustrations. That's coming up next. We're going to look closely at the words and illustrations so that we can determine the problem by finding evidence about what was difficult and dangerous during the mission. Kids don't need to name for you the problem. We're just going to tell them what the problem is that there were a lot of dangerous and difficult things. That's the problem. But the thing is, you want to make that connection. They don't have to say what it is, but you want to make sure they're thinking, they're understanding that, like, we just did this turn and talk. My teacher just told me what I need to do to find the central ideas. I have to think about the problem and solution. And the problem is that they were difficult and there were dangerous things that were happening during this Apollo 11 mission.
So they're about to now collect evidence about the problem and the solution.
Pause. Notice that what you said is actually the right thing. Well, I think is the right thing. But the lesson plan, step 5, is that about problem and solution or just about one thing?
Oh, just one thing.
What is it about?
The problem.
Right.
So we're not.
So I feel like we need to add in a portion where they're also finding the solution.
Yeah.
Because in the lesson plan, there is no space for them to find the solution until the discussion part of the lesson. But I just think, like, knowing, like, our kids and, like,
whatever you tell
they need practice finding it before they discuss it. Yeah. They just won't be able to discuss a solution without practicing it first. So we're actually going to have them find the problem and the solution
so we are not
in the same practice.
About the problem and the solution to prepare us for the central idea, to help us determine the central idea.
Mm-hmm.
Is that too wordy if I also add, because I know you said we always like tell them by looking at the words in the text and also the illustrations. Too wordy or no?
No, you need to say that too.
We are now about to collect evidence about the problem and solution to help us determine the central idea. To do this.
I think it's like we are now going to look at the words and the illustration to help us determine the problem and solution. To help us collect evidence about the problem and solution in our story. This is going to help us determine the central idea of the text.
All right, so we are now about to look at illustrations and words. We got evidence about to help us determine the central idea. All right, got it.
Okay. So the lesson plan has already provided, like, pages with problems in both texts. There are a lot, and if we're having students find the solution, we're gonna run out of time. So I think that, like, we need to select a limited amount of problems that we want to focus on, especially problems that have identifiable solutions. But before we do that, I want to make sure that we are thinking about what questions we're asking kids as they're working. So what questions do you think we need to be asking kids as they're trying to find this evidence? What's their thinking job?
What is either they could be asking them, because I know their thinking job to help them get the central ideas, like they have to know what's going on first to understand how that could be a problem.
Right, but they should have. We already did our gist lesson, so it's not what's going on anymore. What are we looking for as we reread?
What is the problem that's happening in this part of the text?
Yeah, so lesson plan is a little bit more specific. So it's like not necessarily what is the problem, but like, so you can say that what is the problem. The scaffolded question is what is difficult and what is danger and what dangerous things are happening. Does that make sense?
So which one? Just what is the problem?
So if kids are struggling, or you're walking around, what difficult or dangerous thing is happening? And then you can ask, okay, great. Once they found it, how do they solve that? But they need to find that. Let me back up. Let them find this first. Let's find out. Remember, step number 5 is they're going to be collecting evidence about what is difficult and dangerous.
Okay, so the question I should just ask them is first, it don't matter if I don't see a problem, but you would prefer me to just say what was difficult or dangerous about this part of the text?
Yeah.
dangerous.
And they should be looking at the words and the illustrations.
Oh, do you think I should have a anchor chart tomorrow with the gist of both of them on there, just in case?
The gist of what? The text?
Both of them. Mm-hmm.
The full text?
Mm-hmm.
Sure, you could. And then I think like once kids have been able to determine like what happened, like what is the problem or like what is the difficult or dangerous on that page,
Mm-hmm.
you just have to stamp it. And then I think we go back in. So how do they overcome that or how do they solve that challenge?
Based on that same problem.
Mm-hmm. So
we gotta go and find.
We're gonna give them the page number.
Uh-huh.
Reminding them this is their thinking job.
Mm-hmm.
Let them work, stamp it. Now, here's our next thinking job. Remember, in order to find the main idea, so the central idea of a story, we have to think about the problem and the solution. So on this page, we said that this happened. Let's go back on that page. Where do we see them? How do they overcome this challenge? Or how do they solve that problem? Either or. You decide what language you want to use.
Yeah, well, we gotta find pages that got problem and solution.
Yep, we're gonna do that next.
I
Okay.
think that first page got problem and solution though.
So tell me what you're gonna do when you release kids to work independently.
So basically starting from step 5, basically saying we're now getting ready to look at the illustrations and words to help us collect evidence about the problem and solution so that we can determine the central idea.
Great.
Remember, let's remind ourselves of our thinking job. Everybody read what was difficult or dangerous about this part of the text.
Mm-hmm. And you can quickly say, this is our problem.
Yep, this is our problem. All right, with your partners, you have 2 minutes to reread the text. So that you can jot down what was the problem in this part of the text. Mm-hmm. And then somebody stamp it.
I want you to say what was difficult and what was dangerous.
Oh, I wrote it down. Okay. What was difficult or dangerous about this part of the text? But I know that that's the problem. And I can also just quickly say that, like, this is also our problem.
Right, because if you think about it, like, so let's say they had a question and the question was like, what is the problem? The problem is that there were dangerous and difficult things that happened. That's the answer. We want them to find evidence. So don't hide the ball. Tell them what the answer is. It was dangerous and it was difficult.
Yeah, but we're trying to prove how we know.
Right, so you can say, so I want you to say the answer as much as possible to the problem, which is dangerous and difficult. Does that make sense? So yeah, because we don't want them to spend their time thinking about the problem. We're going to give it to them. Yeah. We want them to find the evidence. Okay.
And then after they come back and it's stamped, then okay, now go back and reread this page. How do they solve this problem? Jot it down.
Great. And then we'll practice that in a minute with some of the page numbers. But I want us to skip down to the discussion part of the conversation.
The most important part.
Yes. So look at step 3 where it says facilitated brief discussion of these questions. It's really important that kids have their notes already in their hand. It's also really important that their notes are structured. I think like one of the growth areas that we have around discussions is that kids don't always have like their notes set up in a way that like makes sense to them. In my mind, I was thinking, you use sticky notes. Do you want to continue using those or?
Oh no, I've been letting them do it in their journals. Now I just have to think about.
Should we do like a note catcher with one side that has like the problem and then the solution?
Yeah, so maybe we could probably create a handout for them tomorrow. Because I know, or just because it would just be too many papers if they already have their journal.
Great.
So then just have it not organized. Like I could see if they were just doing one text, but they're doing 2.
Okay. So how should we modify this question based off of our practice? So the question is, what things about the mission were difficult or dangerous? What do we need to add based off the practice they just did and the evidence they just found? What's missing?
And how did they overcome it?
Yes. So a great way to build and have a conversation is calling one person to say what the problem was, calling somebody else to say how they overcame it. Like that's how we're actually building discourse, right?
Because you said
So if you call,
shouldn't be a turn. Just quickly call somebody. Notes.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
It's a discussion.
Oh yeah, true.
Yeah.
But no, I was thinking more like turn and talk. But you're just saying they already took the notes, so like.
Yeah, they already
now
work with their
spend time.
partners. Now it's a share out time.
Yeah.
They've already talked to their partners. They've already worked together. Now it's like the time for us to share
And
out.
people who share out, it could literally probably be a multiple of problems depending on which page they decide to talk about, right? Because they may have 3 problems, 3 solutions, or 2. You know, they could choose anyone. It doesn't matter as long as.
Right.
Okay.
And what I'm saying to you is that, like, in order to build the discourse, I think it would be helpful if you, and give multiple kids practice, if you had someone say a problem, but found somebody else who could who could say the matching solution.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah, but I feel like I kind of did that. Like,
Okay.
because you didn't do that. Like, okay, we all still thinking about the same
thing, right?
And you already wrote it down. So how did they overcome it?
Mm-hmm.
You got 30 seconds. I know sometimes I gotta get them think time too because I'd be like. Okay.
Here's another part that I want to change. So I'm also thinking a lot about, like, okay, so even if a kid is able to say, like, okay, here's the problem and then here's the solution, how is that leading them to the central idea? I think there's a thinking step that's missing. So I think the third question we have to ask kids is, like, why is that important?
Where you at?
I'm on the same step.
Oh.
So.
Well, I feel like I've been doing that too.
You have to ask, why is that important? And when I say why is that important, I mean, for example, one of the problems in the text that we're going to look at in a second is, or what was dangerous and difficult was that it was the first time anybody had ever done something like this, right? And the solution, how they overcame it, was that they made sure that the astronauts were fully prepped and prepared in these helmets and these gloves that protected them, and they had a lot of people that were, like, ensuring that their helmets were locked in. There's a lot of evidence there, but, like, okay, so why is that important? It's important because we learned that in order to be safe in space, it takes a team to help you. It takes preparation to help you. So then, what did you learn? Or what did you learn from the Apollo 11, how they overcame challenges? They worked together as a team. They prepared for it. So the third question I want us to ask after we talk about the problem and the solution is, why is it important? And then for number 4, step 4, did you add that? So step 4, what can we learn from how the people of the Apollo 11 overcame challenges? I think we're not going to discuss that. That will be where they write. Number 4, page 307.
So basically, I added to the question is, step 1, what things about the mission were difficult or dangerous? And step 2, how did they overcome it? Share out, and then why is this important? And so they should be able to.
For each problem that we introduced, right. Why is that important? Because it won't match for each one, right?
Yeah, true. So I would have to come back and add the why is it important for each one.
No, right after you ask what the solution is, why is that important?
Yeah, not talking about for me.
Yeah.
Like for each one, because I was thinking about my only one, but you're saying for however many problems and solutions we find.
Yeah, because why is it important? That answer, that is the central idea. It's important because in order to go into space, you have to be prepared.
Yeah.
It takes preparation. In order to go into space, it takes a team of people to help you.
Yeah.
It takes collaboration, it takes teamwork. That's our answer. So that part we're not writing down. That's the discussion part.
Right. That's going to help them for the central idea.
Yes, they can take notes, but for part 4, what can we learn from how people of Apollo 11 overcame this challenge? That'll be the part where they write. That's where I used to get. Does that make sense? Okay. How much time do you have?
On to 53.
Okay, let's look at the text and let's look at some examples of evidence that students can find. Okay, I'm gonna stop here.